Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Welcome back to another session on Moments with Marion. Now in one of the previous videos, I talked about the color red and how it affects me. Now a lot of people have actually asked me, would you talk about the colors? So I'd like to take this opportunity to start this Color My World series, and today the color that's inspired me is the color purple. Now purple is associated with royalty, and many times when I do my corporate classes on professional image, a lot of people ask me, is it possible to wear purple in the office? Now because it's such a bright, vibrant color, the shade is very important. I do find that the lighter shade of purple is quite appropriate, but if you do a color that's too bright, it could actually be very distracting for people. Now I remember in one of my color classes, somebody once asked me, what is the association with purple? So I threw the question back to the class and I asked them, what did they think the color purple stood for? And I recall somebody in the class saying, it's the color of Barney. So they asked me, what's wrong, Marion? Why is your face changed? And it really brought back a memory for me, which is one of the things that I want to talk about, the meaning of purple. So when I look at the words, the one word that stood out to me was imagination. Now I truly believe that I have a very vivid imagination. I love to be able to live in the future, to plan, to think about all the different experiences that I can have, all the places that I can go, all the people that I can meet. And when it came to the word Barney, or the name Barney of the purple dinosaur, it just brought back a very funny memory for me. Now I remember when my sons were really young, somebody had given them this Barney toy that when you touch it or when you move around it, it speaks to you. Now I can recall turning it off one night and putting the boys to sleep. Now later in the night, like a typical mom, I went into the room to check on them. And as I passed this Barney toy, it said to me, want to be my friend? And that freaked me out. Now another word that does speak to me in terms of the positive meanings of purple is humanitarian. Now I don't think I'm a humanitarian, but for me, I'm very passionate about my purpose. And in one of the previous videos, I talked about finding your passion. So for me, being able to make a difference in people's lives is very important. And when it comes to the color purple, they also talk about spiritual awareness. Now, I don't think I'm a religious person, but my spirituality is important. But more importantly, to be able to go out and to serve people. And that to me is what spirituality is all about, and also being able to connect with yourself and connect with others around you, including taking care of the world. Now on the downside, there are two words that speak to me in terms of the negative meanings of the color purple. The first one, of course, is impractical. Now, I don't think I'm an impractical person, but I do recognize that I'm very, very optimistic, and I'm always looking for options or possibilities. Now, when someone says no to me, it's quite a trigger. I don't like it, and I always want to think about why can't we do it this way? The other one is suppression, and I definitely recognize that I have suppressed a lot of my emotions or unpleasant experiences, especially in the past. Now I talk a lot more about it in my video about managing stress, as well as integrating the 3 centers. So I've had to recognize that suppressing things has not really helped me. So in terms of some of the work that I've done on myself, the first one really is to be able to sit with anything uncomfortable. Well, whether it was emotions, whether it was people saying no to me, I really had to sit with it and recognize that whatever uncomfortable feelings I would have would pass. That would definitely help me be more open to finding out about what other people had to say. So this is where I also had to then listen to them. I recognize, especially learning this Chinese character for the word listen, there's a lot more to listening than just using your ears. If you look at this Chinese character, it talks about a number of other things. So I've learned to use my eyes to observe the person, watch out for their body language, notice any of the cues that they're giving to see if they're saying a lot more than verbally. I've also had to learn to focus on that one person, listen from my heart, as well as to ensure that I treat them like they're the most important person in front of me. That has definitely made me a much better listener. Now the other thing that I've also had to do is to ask more questions. Now in the past, if I didn't like something, I tended to just not listen to people and just move away. So what I've recognized I've had to do is to ask questions, but they had to be more open. Also in the past, I tended to ask more close-ended questions like, do you want to do it this way? Or are you okay with what I'm going to do? So I was really pushing my way through by asking these close-ended questions. So for me, it was so important to be able to listen to them, asking open questions like why and how. If you don't want to do it this way, how would you like to do it? Why do we want to do it this way? That way, it gave me a much better understanding of people. Now, something else that I had to do was also to be able to write out the pros and cons of different things. I'm a very visual person, so at certain points I had to write down the pluses and the minuses, and then by visually being able to see all the differences, it tended to give me a much better perspective as well as to make much better choices. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a little bit of the learning that I went through, basically recognizing some of the positives and the negatives within me. So I hope you've learned something from this sharing, and as usual, please write in the comments what you feel this color purple means to you. Do remember that at the end of the day, it's about being the best you. So till we meet again for another Moments with Marion.